there's a process. Everything that happens has a cause. And by understanding that process and cause, you know the red flags. And with those red flags, you know how to calculate whether people can pay their debts back and how the dynamic's going to work. When there's a certain rate of debt growth that is unsustainable and that there's going to be a problem paying it back, you can see that you have a problem. When you start to have a debt problem and you're close to zero interest rates, that means that the central bank, the Federal Reserve's ability to deal with that won't work. You'll hit zero. And then you enter a new world. Okay, the last time that happened was 1928 to 1929, 30, 31. That's what happened. What happened in 2007 and 9 was the exact same thing. A debt crisis, too much debt, and you hit zero interest rates and out of luck. And then what happens, there's a classic way of dealing with that, is that the central bank has got to print money and go buy financial assets. And so that's what all the entities did. And so by being able to watch it day by day as to how they went about doing that, allowed us to navigate the crisis so that we could see the rates of deterioration and then the actions taken to end that in much the same way as the Federal Reserve ended it in 1932, 1933, for the same reasons. Now that printing of money causes financial assets to go up in price, puts money into the economy, and produces the type of reaction that we've now seen in terms of that economy and those markets. Then we're at the stage of the cycle where we are now. And what happens, classically, is that those financial purchases help those who have financial assets more than they help those who don't. It causes a greater wealth gap. And very classically, that causes populism. And then you move into a situation that's very similar. So being able to see mechanically how that dynamic worked allowed us to navigate it well. The early part of the debt cycle is the great part of the debt cycle because the borrowing of money is being put into assets that are going to be able to pay back that debt and grow, and asset prices go up.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Then you enter the bubble stage when everybody is extrapolating that because it happened in the past. Because those assets went up, they're going to continue to go up. And they're going to continue to rise, and it pays to borrow money to do it, but they're not able to actually pay off their cash flow. The top of the cycle usually happens when the bubble exists and also the Federal Reserve or the central bank begins to tighten money to slow that bubble at the high part of the cycle. So as we take a look at that, we are approaching more the top of that cycle. I don't think we're there yet. I think we're in the 7th inning. When you have that tightening and then you have the turn down, I'll call the depression phase, that depression phase happens because you hit zero interest rates and because they're less effective in monetary policy. That's why 2008 was like it was in much the way 1930 was. And so that's the depression phase. In my opinion, on this long-term debt cycle, we are relatively late in a longer-term debt cycle. We're relatively late in a business cycle. That doesn't mean imminent. I mean, I think there's 2 or 3 more years probably in this. I'm not sure for sure. But we are then going to have a downturn at some point. Downturns always come. Recessions always come. And what we have is a situation in which the capacities of the central banks to reverse it are more limited because interest rates are close to zero, at zero in Europe and Japan. And also, the effectiveness of monetary policy, quantitative easing, is largely behind us because they have put that money in and those asset prices have risen. We also have another issue, which is the wealth gap and the populist issue, which is, I think, worse than it was back then. They set out a path for tightening interest rates, to raising interest rates and a rate of tightening. And every track that they set out, they didn't adhere to. In other words, they tightened monetary policy much more slowly than they projected and also the market projected. And that was appropriate. I think that they're questioning their own decisions appropriately. When you hit zero interest rates, you have a different type of debt crisis. You have more likely to have a depression. So I think the period that we're in is very similar to the 1935-1940 period. Let me just explain that in a minute. 1929 to 1932, we had a debt crisis and interest rates hit zero. 2007 to 2009, we have a debt crisis, it hit zero. then in both of those cases, there's only one thing for central banks to do, and that is to print money and buy financial assets. They print money, buy financial assets in both of those times. That pushes financial asset prices up, puts a lot of liquidity in, and also contributes to a greater wealth gap. Because those who own financial assets benefit when those who don't own financial assets. As a result, in both periods of time of the wealth gap and the economy not improving for a large segment of the population, we have populism. So the last time, say, when was populism popular, it would be in that period of time.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dan, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dan.